Hello everyone, I'm Earl the Rookie Woodworker, and today I'm going to address this mess behind me. And that plywood over there that's kind of just in the way of everything. I'm going to build a rack that holds all of my wood supply. It should consolidate it, make it take up less overall space by taking advantage of the height of the shop, instead of laying it out across the floor like I've been doing for years now. Yeah, I got it all sorted out. It used to sit over here in the corner and it took up a bunch of room over here. So hopefully whenever I get this built, it'll take up way less room. I'm going to try to do it out of what I have. I think I'm going to have to get a couple things to make up for some things that I'm short on, but this ought to be an interesting build.
Alright, so to start this project off, believe it or not, I did some planning and drew it up in SketchUp first. I don't know if somebody slipped some drugs in my coffee or something, but for some reason I drew it up to be 12 feet long and 6 feet tall. And when I went out to my shop to start building that thing, it was clear that that's not going to work with this little shop. So right away I changed my length dimensions down to 7 foot long, and I kept my width dimensions of 5 feet wide. I stuck with that. But the height, I knocked about one shelf out of it and made it 5 foot tall. And that's where the changes began. Alright, so to start this bottom off, I'm going around it with 4x4s, and I am lagging them together with 6-inch long lag bolts. I am recessing the bolt heads in a little bit because after I put the wheels on this thing, these bolt heads are going to be about perfect ankle height to go ahead and slam your ankles into them. So let's get them recessed and hid in there a little bit. Then to give it a little more rigidity, I'm going to go on each end and bolt in some 2x10s across each end. And with that, that should make everything stiffer and hold everything more square. Am I overbuilding it by doing all this? Well, gosh, I certainly hope so. Because I plan on loading this thing to the brim. If you know me, I overdo some things and oversupply myself with some things. So if you have any comments on a better way to do this, please drop them in the comments below. It's things all about learning here. And from there I simply framed in a couple 2x4s throughout the middle of it and then got started on installing some wheels. I wanted some wheels that are rated for 400 pounds and I'm putting 6 of them on here. But honestly, I don't know if that's actually going to be enough because these wheels aren't going to be loaded evenly and this thing is going to be heavy. So that might end up having to be an upgrade in the future, but we'll see. Let me know what you think in the comments. And yep, I'm using a chalk line to mark out my cut line as I lay some 1/2-inch plywood across the top of this thing. And there you have it. I managed to build a giant skateboard.
Yo, do a kickflip!
Alright, let's see here. No, it didn't come up. Sorry, Tony. Alright, so we'll start working on our shelving. And this is where I made another little change to my design too, because I had the one side being straight up and down, and that's not going to work if you want to be able to push this thing around, because as soon as you start pushing it while these boards are standing basically vertical, they're going to go falling around everywhere. So I ended up shortening the shelves and angling both sides to 20 degrees. All of these changes also made it a little difficult to come up with a proper top shelf. So the top shelf was only going to have about 6 inches to anchor to, and then the rest of it was going to be an overhang. So I had to make a rule that I couldn't let my overhang go more than a foot of the overhang, or else it was going to have too much torque and end up trying to rip the top shelf off if I loaded it up too much. So my goal was to throw as much as I could at the top of this A-frame to try to strengthen up that little bit of support that top shelf has. So I ended up having to cut out a piece of 2x4 to fit perfectly in the top of that A-frame to give it some more meat to screw into. Then there will be some other things along the way to add some strength to it as well. But I built up 4 of them, and now I'm going to go through and screw them all in where I have some 2x4 support underneath the platform to hold on to them. And what I'm putting on here is basically the shelf for the middle, but it's also going to be some supports for the wood that'll be standing on the one side. And this also helps support that A-frame so that it don't spread out like Bambi's legs on ice. Then I'll put some plywood on the plywood side of this. Screwing some plywood down here also helps those A-frames to stop from falling over side to side, so it gives a lot of rigidity there. And yes, I cut off the extra piece with a sawzall like an animal. Then I'll screw down some plywood support for the middle shelf as well. These will serve as the top supports for the standing wood on the standing wood side of the platform. And it will also help add rigidity to the top of the A-frame, which will help that top shelf out a little bit. Now I'll start putting plywood on the side that's going to be hard to put plywood on. So at this point I need to cut out holes for those pieces of 2x4 that stick out to support the standing wood. Now what I did was I drew out a box for where I thought those 2x4 should come through, and then I just added a 1/4 inch to each side to give me some extra tolerance. This is just a thing to hold wood in the garage. I'm not trying to make it pretty, so I'm going to try to make it easy on myself. It's a lot easier to cut these holes out if you take your drill and drill a hole in the opposite corners from each other. That way you just have straight shots to go with the jigsaw. Moment of truth, and it fits like a glove. We didn't want it to fit like OJ's gloves, so we didn't want to make it super tight. So we have it a little bit loose, but that is fine. Cutting up the top piece is a lot easier because the pieces you need to cut out is right against the top, so you can just hold it up there and trace it out and then just start cutting it. You don't have to do any measuring. And that one ended up being a little closer to fitting as tight as OJ's glove. And with making the cutoffs box, it is pocket hole drilling time. Geez, close your drawers, Earl. Was you raised in a barn? With the 4x4s and the 2x4s we're going through to, I have plenty of room for screws, so I'm using long screws to put this thing together. And then I'm putting this little 1-inch lip on both sides to make sure when I get to moving this thing around, wood don't go sliding off the face of it and wreaking havoc everywhere.
Alright, so here's the moment of truth. It's time to load this bad boy up and see if it holds together. So I'm definitely going to be loading it up to its maximum capacity because I got a lot of stuff here. Let's get to it.
Whew, I didn't realize how fast I could move. Look at me go. I'm just kidding. I sped up the footage for this part because this whole process took me like an hour and a half, almost 2 hours to load this stuff up. So I didn't want to put you through an hour and a half long of this. So I sped it up for you. See that? Halfway done already. All I had to do is speed up the footage. You're welcome. But look at all that room I freed up already. There's so much space.
Should have been.
Look at all this floor space.
So
There's
much.
aerobics in here.
So many activities.
Alright, now that that kicked my butt, the next test will be, can I move it? Because it has to be mobile. Can I move it? It moves.
Alright, so with that, this thing is complete. I finally have a bunch of room in my shop now. Now I need to start organizing everything else. So, there's more projects like this to come to help me out with organizing my shop. So if you are interested in these builds, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell for the next time I post one of these videos. Until then, feel free to check out some of my other videos. Some of them should be popping up on my screen any second now. And until next time, build something awesome.